called him Jason in a handful of places. His name still lived. A penciled note on the inside cover of a library book. A crooked scrawl on the underside of the kitchen drawer. The chalky ghost of attendance, once taken and later erased. Everywhere else, he didn't exist. 20 years had passed since the night he went missing from that small blue house on Larkspur Street. The police had purged the case, and no one had ever read any of the old files. The newspaper articles had been migrated and lost to the archives. A year later, it seemed everyone had forgotten. The neighbors aged into a silence that felt like frost. The town learned to step around the hole where a child had been. Jason learned to live in it, to live inside that hole, long forgotten about. At first he tried the usual things. He rattled the radiator, but adults blamed the pipes. He traced his name in dust, but mothers scolded children for dirty fingers. He made a toy car roll down the stairs, but a real estate agent called it unsettling vintage charm and put it in the listing. He flickered lights, hushed curtains, tapped windows. People felt goosebumps and called them drafts. The world is good at naming the wrong thing. He watched the house change hands through the years, watched the paint crack and peel, overheight marks on the kitchen door frame. He watched a baby take her first steps where he'd last taken his. He faded when the house stood empty and brightened when new families hung photographs. Photos helped. Lenses were merciful. In the black square of a turned-off TV screen, he sometimes saw himself smudged in gray, as if the glass remembered him better than people did. When the true crime tour started coming by in October, college kids with paper cups and a guide more eager than accurate, Jason, followed them to the sidewalk. He liked the buzz of their questions, the breath of possibility. They asked when he'd been taken, but no one knew. Who had seen him last? No one agreed. And whether any suspects were named. Totally debatable. They did not ask who he had been. That, he realized, was the only question that could make him visible. He started collecting answers. He learned how to pluck at paper like a guitar string, how to thrum a stack of old mail until the top envelope slid free. He opened the junk drawer and found, beneath rubber bands and half-dead batteries, a Polaroid frame with its center cut out. The white border had his mother's handwriting. Jason, picture day. Someone had cut him away and left a label. He pressed the frame to the window. The October sun fit neatly inside it. For a moment, he was a bright square on the glass. No one looked up. On the kitchen counter sat a library book, overdue, The Mammals of Tennessee. He turned to the first page. There, faint as a bruise, a penciled J nested in a curl of erased graphite. The librarian had stamped the due date over it years ago. Jason leaned close to the page and breathed. Not air, but memory. The letter darkened. The J became Jason. He felt the room notice him, and then, like a stranger who almost remembers a name, let it go. He grew gentler. He began to arrange evidence, not of a crime, but of a boy. A plastic dinosaur on the sill facing the yard, because he had once believed they watched over him. A plastic cup turned upside down in the sink, because he loved the hollow poke it made. He gathered his things from the house's amnesia and set them in small shrines where hands would find them. And when hands did, the air thrummed with the near sound of his name. On the first frost night, a new family moved in. a woman named Alma and her teenage son, Theo. They brought boxes labeled in thick marker and a goldfish that stared like an unblinking look. As a curious teenager, it didn't take Theo long to put together things just were not normal. He started taking pictures. One he posted, haunted. The photo got 12 likes and 1 comment. And that was from a local history buff, linking an article, a single paragraph preserved by a hobbyist blog about a boy named Jason who had vanished on Larkspur 2 decades ago. Jason felt the word Jason ripple through the house and settle into walls like a pulse. He felt it in the pipes and the plaster. He stood by the refrigerator where the hum was warm and low and waited. "Mom," Theo called that night, gentle with the hour. "Did you know a kid disappeared here?" Alma paused, hands still in dishwater. "People disappear in houses all the time," she said softly. "Houses disappear around people too." She dried her hands on a towel and looked at the kitchen door frame, as if she expected a measure of height to appear. "Can we?" Theo started, then stopped, as if embarrassed by his own tenderness. "Can we do something?" They printed the paragraph and taped it to the fridge. They added a sticky note. Who was he? Under it, Theo wrote, "What did he like?" Alma wrote, "Did he have a favorite cereal?" The next morning, the cereal box sat alone on the counter, poured but not eaten. Alma frowned. She had not left it there. "Okay," she told the room. "Jason, if you're here, we see you. We just don't know how to help." Jason stepped toward the refrigerator, putting his hand where the magnet held the paper. The chill in the metal told him he was close to touch. He pressed until the magnet clicked, slid a fraction, and then the paper shifted. A corner lifted, then dropped. Alma gasped. Theo whispered, "Dude." "Tell us," Alma said, voice steady, like someone cracking a door in a storm. "Tell us what to do." The kitchen had become so cold at this point that Alma could see it in the air when she spoke. A crash out in the dining room sent them both racing out of the room, seriously afraid someone had broken into their home. Instead, they found the far-end cabinet door hanging off one of the hinges and multiple items tossed out onto the floor. It was then they realized something was seriously wrong. Inside the cabinet, there was a picture of a little boy, a teddy bear in his hand, standing in an open doorway. Theo turned a little to the left, and it was then they realized they had totally forgotten there was a cellar. Theo searched the cabinet for a flashlight, and after finding one, he opened the door. The hinges creaked loudly, like it had not been used in quite some time. The door wasn't like one going to a basement. It was a smaller door, leading more under the floor. As they made their descent down, they noticed it had gotten much, much colder. There were no lights in the cellar, so Theo's flashlight was the only thing guiding their way. They heard a scuttling off in the darkness. sending a shudder through Alma. She just knew it was rats. Theo's light led them to a small area of the cellar where toys were spread out, as if a child had been playing there. Neither of them could imagine a child playing in a dark cellar, unless had he been locked in there? There was an entire section of cabinets left remaining for storage, and also an area that looked to be where yard tools would have been hung. Alma put her hand at Theo's wrist, pointing in the direction where they both heard a solid thud. An old shovel lay on the ground. Theo picked it up, lying the flashlight on one of the handmade shelves atop the cabinets. He looked silent at his mom and turned to begin digging. What they discovered would haunt them forever. Buried deep down in the earth was a tiny blue shoe, a child's shoe, and another picture. A picture of a little boy, a picture of Jason. There was no body, only those items. 2 months later, they moved from the house, the real estate agent putting a new for sale sign out once more. Jason stood in the upstairs bedroom peering out. The only sign he had ever been there was the tiny hand mark left behind as he vanished into the emptiness of the hollow home once more. The house on Larkspur Street learned a new habit that autumn. Visitors, they came and went. They knocked and whispered, "Jason," before they came in. Photos on the refrigerator multiplied, not of him, but of things he loved, because he had loved them. Marbles, toy cars, cereal bowls. The 2 words under the magnet stayed in place all season. Who was he? Nobody would ever discover the secret of what happened to Jason there on Larkspur Street, but his memory was guaranteed to be embedded forever.